around the world and see how much we borrow and how frequently we borrow. And we do nothing to the good, we do nothing to the heart of the band by doing that. We don't get a contribution from an overseas player. And listen, I've indulged in it. I've had it. It's great to have extra really good players. But as I age, is that the right word? Mature, let's say. I'm not sure that this is all for the best of piping, because what really are we trying to achieve is an improvement in pipe bands, right from top to bottom. And so spreading the wealth, I think, is probably a good way to do that. If I have a moment, I don't. We'll try. Chris was talking about the advantages of large sections, and to be honest with you, I do agree with it. Musically, it's a very sound argument to make. I'll just try and highlight a couple of points. Robert Wallace, a few years ago, posted something about the nature of the large pipe section and why bother doing it, because you can't tell the difference in volume anyways. And then a well-known Canadian judge posted a blog saying that he agreed completely with that, and large pipe sections ain't going to impress me, you can count on it. So I took up the cudgel and wrote him basically like this: can anyone be so obtuse as to think that this is merely about being loud? That said, you and Rab should read a book called This Is Your Brain on Music. It's written by Daniel Levinson, a session musician, record producer, and now a neuroscientist. Worked with Stevie Wonder, Blue Oyster Cult, and so on. He's got a book, 300 pages. It's called Your Brain on Music. Very easy to read, and he explains how music listening engages nearly every neural subsystem that we have. The complex interplay and connections amongst gazillions of neurons is mind-boggling, and the exquisite perception and response to music, which our brains give us, will likely have you revisiting your and Rab's completely unfounded claim that we cannot perceive the difference between 107 and 109.5 decibels. That's likely one of the easiest things the brain can do for us when we listen to music. So the point is that I believe that there are amazing musical reasons to have huge pipe sections, but I believe as well that in the competition environment that sustains us, we need to find a way to make the playing field fair and level and reasonable for everybody. And I agree as well with Chris that it's not just pipe sections that need limitation, it's drum sections and mid sections as well.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Now we'll just turn it over to kind of one-on-one for 5 minutes. Bill and Chris can maybe ask each other questions, and then after that we'll turn it over to the audience for your questions, because we do want participation. So, Chris, maybe over to you.
I got a question for you.
Okay, good.
What do you want to do for lunch?
I guess, just from an interest point of view more than anything else, when you had the big band and all the rest of it, did you find any kind of massive difference between managing a smaller group to a larger group of people with regards to tuning and just the general sort of logistics of getting pipe going? Did you find any big differences?
I didn't, but I think it's because by that time we had gone to a kind of subcommittee system of managing all of the aspects of the band. So we had created, probably, maybe you've done it as well, we created a tuning team. So I was able to divulge myself of all of the responsibility. I mean, when I started doing this, I did everything. I tuned the channers and I tuned the drones and I got the music together, and that was actually much harder than the big section when we had a good, strong tuning team, 3 guys tuning channers, a couple of guys tuning drones. It was okay. It was manageable.
You have to change the way you manage the process. You just got to change your system.
Yeah. There's another thing about big sections. I compare it to what you see on radio hear on radio and see on TV commercials. When the commercial comes on, it sounds incredibly louder. It just invades your room, and everyone reaches for the volume dial. But they're not turning the volume up in any way. They're doing a trick that I don't understand called compression. They compress the sound, and this is what happens certainly in the 30-man and woman pipe section we had. There was a sense of compression. It was just like so intense to stand behind a piper, and you were hearing like 5 instead of 2. It was very interesting.
One of the things I found certainly with playing bigger numbers was, and again I'm not sure if this is just maybe an impression that I'm getting, but is a sort of filling out of the harmonics that you get from the core as a whole. It just seems to be a lot fuller sound. Again, it's kind of making comparison between the 16 that I started with and then going up gradually. I mean, I record the band during the winter year on year to make sort of comparisons with previous years, so you're not hitting the grass sort of behind the pace, if it were, or at least hopefully not. And what I've found year on year with the increase, using the sort of pretty good recorder that I've got, is that the whole thing seems to sound and feel a lot fuller. Certainly when you're stood in, where we practice, it's kind of a wooden floor, and you can actually feel the vibrations of the floor. And to me, when it's well set and it's going well, that there is producing the sound that I'm looking for.
It's very dense, but therein lies the inequality. If you've got 30 and you can play 30 and it sounds brilliant, you're just going to be better than somebody playing 18. It's just going to be, the impression is going to be so much different. There's so much more impact from that, the density and the power of the sound. And it is louder, by the way. If people think it's not, they're wrong. It's not. If that, by the way, is the definition of what's good. I'm not sure I agree that it is.
I mean, I would say that perhaps, obviously the bigger you go, you can only play everybody if things. I'm not saying, and I would never put the band in a position where I would take people on the park if it wasn't up to scratch or not. I don't put a lot of hard work in just to shoot myself in the foot, but I think that if you've got a team of people that are sort of at the required standard, and I don't see the issue with taking it on the park. I mean, obviously, from the side, it creates an inequality, but I'm playing by the rules as they stand.
As they stand, yes. And that's, I guess, what we're talking about. Should there be a change in the rules? Here's another thing I've noticed. There are some pipers who really don't have quite the chops for a top-tier grade 1 band. Because of the demand to make numbers, those pipers get a place in the corps, and then the pipe major has to customize the music to accommodate their level of skill. So the result is generally a very metronomic, uninteresting kind of delivery of the music, and none of the subtleties and the beauty of pipe music that makes it sing and swing. It's together and it's just kind of in time, but I think it's because there are weak sisters who just need to be accommodated.
So again, just thinking about the size, the sort of size thing, and the aesthetics of it. Obviously, going up to the line with a 10 across the front or across the front, whatever you want.
Nothing like.
It's pretty impressive to look at, I suppose. But that brings me down back to the what is if you have the numbers now, level playing field thing aside, if you have the numbers, then utilise what you've got. But if you don't have the numbers, and I go back to when I had a small band, I wouldn't have brought people in that went up to the required standard, regardless of the size. Now, that first season that I had the band, I was struggling to field, about a pipe core of 16, but it didn't put me in it didn't make me feel like I had to bring in people that went up to the required size. standard. There we go. That's the one. To make the band look better. To me, the quality was more important than the sort of quantity.
Always.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We want to make sure that we use the rest of our time till I think noon. We've got to stop, but want to make sure that the audience, if you've got questions, we've got a microphone. If you just want to use the mic so everyone can hear you, or just stand up and shout, depending on your voice. I'd be interested, just before we do that, are there any officials from the RSPBA here? No one here? Just
Were they invited, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that they have a chance if they wanted to ask a question or have any thoughts.
I have a question for Bill. If you're arguing for the limit or the cap, does this include you can only have that amount of numbers, right? You can't have any more on your roster. For example, Chris has 32 on his roster. If it's capped at 25, do you feel that they should still be allowed on the roster, or that's it? And then also, sorry, a transfer window. If that is it, the cap comes in, are players allowed to transfer throughout the season, or should it be off season? You can move around as soon as the season starts. You can't move.
I think the second part of your question is a little bit beyond my ken, Glenn, but I believe that if you're going to cap numbers on the competition field, you need to do the same kind of thing with numbers on your roster. I don't think it's consistent. If the point of the exercise is to spread the talent pool and make it a more level playing field, then both rosters and size on the field, I think, need to be addressed.
I'd like to put it to the two-time leaders, if they're playing the man on iPhone, the man, what numbers do they play? Height 4, draw 4. What's Chris aim for? Is it 24? Is it 26?
Is that sort of a question about ratio? I mean, ratio of heights to runners, or I would say, in my opinion, the ideal ratio that I would sort of aim to look at would be 3 pipers to 1 drummer. Now I know the sort of traditional ratio was about 2 to 1. I think that, and it's not that I don't like the sound of drums or anything like that, it's because I think that having the drums on the loud side detracts from the sort of, and again, this is open, I suppose I've opened a can of worms here, but just my own personal feeling on it is that it detracts from the sort of the melodic aspect of the performance. So in terms of ratio, I would go for sort of 3 to 1. In terms of size, height core, I mean, I can only sort of talk based on the way that the rules are at the moment. I would be working towards getting as strong a pipe core as I could.